Hello, this is Eyton Shalom at the Body Mind Wellness Center in San Diego, making a Middle Eastern lentil soup part 2. I was talking about in the previous video the choices for sour flavor. The two most common choices, or the regular choices for adding the sour flavor to lentil soup, are lemon, freshly squeezed lemon, or chopped tomato, both of which are quite delicious. I'm very fond of using pomegranate molasses. My favorite brand of pomegranate molasses is Cortas pomegranate molasses. Cortas is a very famous, venerable company from Lebanon that makes a few products that I use, one of which is their rose water, another is this pomegranate molasses. Pomegranate molasses is concentrated pomegranate juice. That's what it is. It's concentrated pomegranate juice. Why do I like using it? Pomegranate is sour. It's also astringent and sweet. So when you use pomegranate molasses in a vegetable dish or a meat dish, and I especially like using it in lentil soup if I'm using a bone broth, or sometimes I'll add some small amounts of ground buffalo or ground grass-fed beef into a soup like this. For this amount of soup, you could add 2 tablespoons and it would give a richness of flavor. The combination of the sweetness of the pomegranate with the sourness and astringent flavor gives a kind of depth of flavor that you don't get from the simple sour taste of lemon or the sour sweet taste of tomato. It's as simple as that. So, there's as many ways to make a lentil soup as there are grandmothers and chefs in the world. So I like to use the pomegranate molasses. So I'm going to start off by sauteing the onions. In olive oil. I'm going to use a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to saute my onions. And what kind of olive oil do I use? There's one variety of olive which grows in Spain that tolerates high heat, and that is the Arbequina or Arbequina olive. It's Arbequina. I get a olive oil at Whole Foods, which is the olive oil from Spain. It actually says, as I recall, it says Sevilla or Seville on it, on the label, and that's 100% Arbequina olive, which tolerates high heat. So now I have not turned the heat on. Now I have. So now I've added the onions into the oil, and I am going to saute the onions first before making the soup. Why do I saute the onions first? Because when you saute the onions in olive oil or any kind of fat, it brings out the flavor of the onion more than if you just boil the onion with the lentil straight away. Now, the fact is, it's perfectly fine to just boil the onions, throw the onions in with the lentils and just boil them. You don't have to saute them. Again, this is a bit of my influence of having traveled to India as a young man and learned my cooking. Initially, the first cooking I did really was Indian cooking when I was 18 years old, or actually 17 and a half. That was my introduction to Indian cooking, and Indians are very fond of onion and very fond of sauteing onion in oil, some kind of fat. You could also use ghee, clarified butter, rather than olive oil. My two favorite fats for lentil soup are ghee and olive oil. The ghee is quite nice because it's kind of thick and it really balances the spices. Something else you can put in this soup, if you want, is a little bit of dried red chili. I would use sometimes just a very mild red chili that I get at the Mexican market. I can't remember the name of the one that I get at the Mexican market. It's a big, large chili that's quite flavorful. The most common kind of red chili that you would use, though, is this kind of red chili that you get at the Indian market. I think you're going to call this cayenne. I'm not sure, actually, but it's a small red chili. It's just slightly hot. It's not very hot. Winter's a good time to not use chili, because chili is kind of stimulating, and which is why I use black pepper. Black pepper warms the core of your body, as does ginger and clove, whereas chili is stimulating and actually makes you sweat and actually cools you off. That's why in a hot climate like India, you'll notice that the countries where they eat very hot food tend often to be hotter climates. So I'm sauteing the onion on a medium to medium high heat so that it turns golden on me. You can saute the onion for as long as you want. Some people will saute the onion until it's quite brown. I'm just really sauteing it a bit to bring out the flavor of the onion before I add some other things. So now I'm going to add the garlic, and I'm going to add my carrots as well. I have a theory that when you saute the carrots in the fat with the onion, that they get imbued with the flavor of the onion and the garlic. So this is a case where I don't want to cook the garlic a lot. I don't want it to burn at all. Well, you never want garlic to burn, almost never. But I just want to bring out the flavor of the garlic a little bit, because it's going to be boiling for quite a while with the lentils. And so now we've got carrot and onion, and I think if I had celery, which I normally will put some celery in this soup, that's what the French call mirepoix. Mirepoix, which is onion, carrot, and celery, is the basis for a lot of things in French cooking. There's a town in the south of France called Mirepoix. I've been to this town. It's very beautiful. It's in the northern, just north of an area called Ariège, just north of the Pyrenees. It's a very beautiful old town with a very beautiful church. I don't know if that's where mirepoix comes from, the idea, but in a lot of French cooking they use onion, carrot, and celery, and they call that mirepoix. I will typically put celery in the soup. I don't happen to have any on hand. So now I'm going to add the salt and pepper, because I am going to cook the pepper in. I'm not adding the pepper at the table, though. Oops, there goes the steam. I'm not adding the pepper. You can add the pepper at the table. If you add the pepper at the table, it will be a fresher flavor. But in this case, I'm going to lower the heat now so it doesn't burn. In this case, I just want I want more the heat of the flavor and also the heat of the pepper. But I want it to have a cooked kind of flavor. In Indian cooking, they almost never add pepper at the table. It's always cooked in. Okay, now I'm going to add the cumin, because the cumin, I'm using cumin powder rather than cumin seed. Sorry about that. Cumin can also needs to be have its flavor brought out by sautéing in the oil. And now I'm going to add a small amount of baharat, because the baharat is something that I do add a little bit more at the end, because the smell and the fragrance of the baharat does dissipate with cooking. So with cooking, the taste of it settles in, but that fragrant aroma dissipates. So that's about how much baharat I'm going to use, and I'm going to put about half of it in now and half of it more towards the end. And then I'm going to add a little bit of allspice as well, because I just love the smell and flavor of allspice. The baharat that I'm using does not have allspice in it, but there's another kind of baharat that I used to get from the Arab market that's from Syria that has bay leaf and allspice. I forgot to put the bay leaves in. So